from Hollywood, I'm Bella Shaw. And on our front page, the American Music Awards in Hollywood last night spent most of its time honoring upbeat, accessible music acts like New Kids on the Block, Paula Abdul, Bobby Brown, and Milli Vanilli. But controversy over obscenities made by two members of the heavy metal band Guns N' Roses stole the spotlight from the other winners. Dennis Michael was there and has a report.
Duff McKagan and Slash from Guns N' Roses made two appearances on the podium at the American Music Awards, accepting prizes for favorite heavy metal artists and favorite heavy metal album. The first time their speech was disjointed. The second time, the pair lapsed into obscenity and got cut off in mid-sentence.
All right, listen, Tom Zutop for finding us, Alan Niven for getting us there, Doug Gold.
Backstage, talking to reporters from the assembled media, pulling the plug on McKagan and Slash wasn't as simple. Some excerpts.
The whole music thing is changing, which is cool, you know? It's just getting better. It's getting more genuine.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like getting more and more and more from the heart.
Guns N' Roses' comments from the heart have come under criticism, observers claiming the band's message is anti-gay and racist.
You know what? When it comes to doing a record or doing a piece of artwork or doing, you know, even the sign in a store, it's your own.
Yeah, if the law is going to say
stuff, nobody can clamp on that stuff.
If the law is going to try to
do
put
what
you
we want,
you know, that's their problem. It's not our problem. We want to do what we want to do. It's only music. It's rock and roll.
And rock and roll has a long tradition of bad boy behavior, a tradition Slash and McKagan admitted they were upholding when a cameraman suggested the pair had been drinking backstage.
That's very funny. There's no bar here.
Funny, like peculiar, or like funny?
We're drinking wine. It's a very fine wine.
And finally, reporters asked what Slash and McKagan thought was their general image with their fans and the public.
They think we drink a lot. They think we slam a lot of drugs. They think this, they think that. It's this big media thing, right? It's all your guys' fault.
Other winners besides Guns N' Roses included Bobby Brown for Best Male Vocalist and Best Soul Album, New Kids on the Block for Best Pop Group and Best Pop Album, and Randy Travis for Best Country Male Vocalist and Country Album. One unfortunate note, pop female vocalist and dance artist Paula Abdul returned home from the awards to discover her house had been robbed. Bella?
Well, Dennis, getting back to Guns N' Roses for just a minute, what did ABC and Dick Clark Productions have to say about these obscenities going live on the East Coast?
Well, Dick Clark Productions Company issued a statement today saying that they regretted the language that was used by Guns N' Roses during the live telecast and will take all steps possible to prevent a reoccurrence.
Perfect Strangers elevator operator Harriet has been spun off into her own show, Family Matters. The show also marks a return to the series television for Telma Hopkins, who plays Harriet's widowed sister Rachel. And as we see in this clip, Rachel is very much a part of the extended family.
Well, there was this little mistake on my report card.
A mistake?
Yeah, Rodney figured out a way to make up phony report cards on his computer. And he gave a bunch of us guys straight A's.
Ooh. Do you know what kind of grades you really got?
Mostly C's and a couple of B's.
Well, that sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, but it's not good enough for Dad.
Oh.
Oh, well, Telma Hopkins is with us here in our Hollywood studios, and it's not the Huxtables, but you may be giving the Huxtables a run for their money.
Yeah, well, we'd like to.
The ratings are looking good on the show.
The ratings are doing very, very well. We're so pleased because we've worked hard and worked long together to make it happen, so we're real proud of the show.
And you play a single mother with a young son.
A widowed single mother, yeah.
And that kind of mirrors your own life.
Well, yes, I married young and divorced young, and I have a son that I raised alone, and so part of this is very much my own life. It's probably the closest role to my own life that I've ever done.
Do you feel like sometimes you could be writing some of the scripts?
Well, certainly. We just did a show where I was dating a man who I hadn't gotten up the nerve to tell I had a son yet, because that generally was their exit, you know. So I thought about that, because there have been some times when men go, oh,
yeah, that's okay.
Change the flavor.
Yeah, and your son in real life is how old?
20.
20?
Yeah.
Boy, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the sitcom, he's just a baby.
Just over a year.
Oh, that
Just
must
over a
be
year.
provide some interesting stories working with the baby. I guess they use
yeah,
twins.
well, it's actually twins. Yeah. So, and they're funny because their moods, they switch moods back and forth. One day one will be sunny and the other will be serious, and you'll think we've established who's who here, and then they'll switch up. And so it's been a lot of fun though, because we've really watched them grow up on the set. We've been working since they were 5 months old.
Keeps you on your toes.
They're
doesn't
walking now and complaining and stuff.
Now, children are near and dear to you, Telma. I understand you do some charity work for children too, don't you?
Well, I've established myself with some charities that do involve kids, like the Rainbow Camp and McLaren Hall, and Cedar Sinai has a teen line for teens in distress, and I just enjoy things that involved our tomorrow, you know, because kids really are.
Your charity work, your sitcom, and a lot of people know you from Tony, Orlando, and Dawn. What about your music plans?
Well, I hope to be going into the studio very soon, and I haven't been traveling with Tony, but I'll probably still do some of that also.
Don't know how you do it.
Oh, it's fun. Are you kidding me?
Maybe that 20-year-old son's giving you some help.
Well, not really.
Well, nevertheless, Telma Hopkins, thank you very much for joining us. The show airs tomorrow night.
Friday night, 8:30.
Okay, we'll see you then. Thanks so much. And we'll be right back in just a minute.
Tomorrow on Showbiz Today, Dirty Dancing's Jennifer Grey tackles a more serious subject in the TV movie Murder in Mississippi.
Joining us now, as he does every Monday, is our man inside the movie industry, Martin Grove. Welcome, Marty. What is new in Hollywood?
Well, Bella, what's new at the box office? Not much. Internal Affairs, the Richard Gere thriller, is the only new entry. Otherwise, the list of the top 5 is a virtual carbon copy of last week's top 5. Born on the 4th of July holds on to the top spot, grossing $8 million in its second weekend of wide release. It continues to be a prime candidate for major Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, Actor, and Director.
You have no idea how far I'll go.
Danny DeVito's black comedy, The War of the Roses, holds steady in second place, bringing in more than $5.5 million in its sixth weekend.
Subtle. Real subtle.
Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell's buddy film Tango and Cash earned a little less cash, but enough to hold on to third place.
I can never go back there now.
Internal Affairs made a strong debut in fourth place, earning just over $5 million. It drew only a B in CinemaScore's opening day research, with a 77% chance of liking it, so where it goes from here remains to be seen.
To us.
Always.
As for Steven Spielberg's Always, it fell to fifth place, grossing just over $4 million. 3 other films opened over the weekend, all to disappointing business. New Line Cinema's Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 failed to cut the mustard with moviegoers, grossing just over $2.7 million. Triumph Releasing's Ski Patrol broke a leg, which is good luck in the theater, but bad luck at the box office. It brought in only about $1.6 million. And 20th Century Fox's Downtown was well down the list, making only about $1 million. Still, overall, key films grossed about $58 million at the box office over the weekend, virtually neck and neck with last year's record-setting pace. But without ticket price inflation, we'd probably be off the pace.
I like that cut the mustard line, Marty.
Thank you.
Why is this business so flat?
Well, you know, it's the holdover films from Christmas. They kind of were weak over Christmas, and they're not any stronger now. Family Business, We're No Angels, She-Devil, all big disappointments.
Well, I can't let you get away with that exclusive. You've got us hooked on those exclusives every Monday.
I have something for you today, and this is a goodie. The spirit of Glasnost is being felt not only in Eastern Europe, but also in Hollywood, where filmmakers are busy arranging to shoot movies in the Soviet Union. I'm told there are plans to make a theatrical film called Chernobyl on or near the site of that nuclear disaster. The movie, which begins production this spring, will be made by Karolko and a company that we know very well called Turner Broadcasting. It'll be seen theatrically outside the U.S. and on Turner Network Television here in the U.S.
I'm curious where you heard that one.
Well, you know, I can't divulge a source, Bella, but I will say it was not from Turner Network Television.
It wasn't for me either, was it?
No. Bella didn't say. She didn't tell me.
More movie news now.
Dennis Michael is here to tell us what's new at the video store so you can have a film festival right in your own living room.
A very short film festival this week. This week we've got an honest Oscar contender and 2 movies that probably won't get mentioned on Oscar night at all, not even by accident.
Who told you to step on my sneakers? Who told you to walk on my side of the block? Who told you to be in my neighborhood?
I own this brownstone.
Who told you to buy a brownstone on my block, in my neighborhood, on my side of the street?
Do the Right Thing, starring, written by, and directed by Spike Lee, is an angry and passionate work of art. The chronicle of the hottest day of the year in Bedford-Stuyvesant is an emotional pressure cooker, resident on several 10 best lists and certainly a contender for the Academy Awards. It is this week's best bet. It's out on videotape this week. The Laserdisc version follows next week. When last we saw Eddie and the Cruisers, Eddie died. Kinda. Well, in Eddie and the Cruisers 2, Eddie lives. Kinda. Eddie and the Cruisers didn't do all that well in the theaters, but caught on in cable and home video. Eddie and the Cruisers 2 didn't do all that well in the theaters either, so now it's up to you.
Well, if that's the case, we'll cruise on to a commercial. Thanks, Dennis. Stay with us, won't you?
Next week on Showbiz Today, what will be the hot new shows on television this fall? We'll take you to a TV programming convention for a preview.
As a brisk breeze is sending temperatures plummeting here in Hollywood, I find myself envying Richard Chamberlain, who gets to work in Hawaii, where he films his TV series Island Sun. As he did earlier in his television career, Chamberlain plays a doctor.
She's not going to make it. But the Cachola boy, he's the 7-year-old with a congenital heart condition.
I know the Cachola case.
He can make it with a heart transplant. Now, I've checked it out. Their blood type is the same. There's very little chance of rejection. And their chest cavities are roughly equal.
Wait a minute. This is your idea of perfect timing.
Well, perfect timing for us, as Richard Chamberlain has left the warmth of Hawaii for a short time to come to talk to us right here, and welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
You've played a doctor before? Dr. Kalani this time?
Long time ago. Yeah.
And what appealed to you about Dr. Kalani?
Well, first of all, the show's set in Hawaii. And especially as we get along, it's going to be much more about Hawaii, which I find a most fascinating place. I think a lot of Americans who feel it's, you know, a known state really don't know much about Hawaii. And I hope our shows can delve more deeply into the culture there.
You're going to be going out into the community a little bit more, out in the field a little bit more.
Yeah, we're going to get the show out of the hospital, and we're going to be dealing much more with our personal lives and much more with Hawaii itself.
And some new characters undoubtedly will be introduced, and they'll offer exciting plots as well, and perhaps some female characters, maybe some romantic interests.
Yes, I have an ex-wife coming back to cause some trouble.
Uh-oh.
And a love interest that's going to start up and continue through several shows that I'm looking forward to a lot.
And you have a son?
Yep, I've got a teenage son who's driving me crazy. And it's real interesting. It's a very interesting show.
How does it differ now, doing a TV series compared to...
Well, you've got to get out more. You can't just stay in the studio anymore. The audience expects much more, and it's much more fun to get out and shoot around the town, especially in a place like Hawaii, which is so beautiful. And the stories can be a bit tougher and deal with subjects that we might not have touched in the distant past. We have a couple of shows coming up that are quite interesting, one that deals with incest and one that deals with AIDS. And it's nice to have the opportunity to say something hopefully intelligent on those subjects.
And when you're not working, here you are in Hawaii, tough life.
Right.
Do you like golf or tennis, or you surf?
I like tennis. I like surfing. Yeah, I like horseback riding and all that. I don't play golf. It looks too slow to me. I don't know.
And how about when the series wraps up, I guess in March, you'll have some free time?
The end of March, yeah. I hope to have an interesting kind of variety job to do then, something quite different. We're going to have conferences about that tomorrow.
Well, we'll wish you luck. Hope 1990 is a great year for you, Richard
Thanks
Chamberlain.
Thanks a lot. Nice
Aloha.
To be here. Thanks. Aloha
Thank
to you.
We'll be right back in just a minute.
Later this week on Showbiz Today, the Vietnam War film Born on the 4th of July, getting raves from the critics, but mixed reviews from vets.
As we begin 1990, our Fastflix segment is looking ahead to one of the most anticipated films of this summer. Dick Tracy stars Warren Beatty, who also produces and directs. Much of the star-studded supporting cast will be hard to spot in heavy character makeup designed to make them look like the famous comic strip's villains. But there's no missing Madonna as nightclub singer Breathless Mahoney. Here's a peek at a few short scenes.
I'm rubbing him out.
I want him dead.
Nobody touches Tracy but me.
Tracy.
Tracy?
You mind if I call you Dick?
I was beginning to wonder what a girl had to do to get arrested.
Wearing that dress is a step in the right direction.
For a tough guy, you do a lot of pansy things.
Extra! Tracy battles move! Everywhere I turn! Tracy!
You're under arrest.
Aren't you gonna frisk me?
Bye.
Dick Tracy arrives this summer from Walt Disney Pictures. Yes, the Disney label itself, and not its more grown-up sister labels, Touchstone Pictures or Hollywood Pictures. And it will be shown with the next Roger Rabbit short, Roller Coaster Rabbit. This New Year's weekend, many stars won't be out celebrating. Instead, they will be donating their time to a good cause. They'll take part in Lou Rawls' Parade of Stars Telethon to benefit the United Negro College Fund. It's the 10th year Lou Rawls has hosted the telethon, which has helped raise over $70 million for the fund. Lou was a recent recipient of the NAACP's Image Award, and his latest album, At Last, has been flying high on the jazz charts. Welcome, Lou Rawls.
Well, thank you.
$70 million raised, that's quite an achievement.
Yes, well, that's money that we've raised on the pledges over the telethon. It's been more than that, but actually, we'd only, add that up, because we go on a year round with the affairs and fundraising events.
A lot of big names?
Oh, yeah, we got Sinatra, we got Iglesias, we have Sammy Davis Jr., Nancy Wilson, Marilyn McCoo, Ed McMahon's gonna be my co-host again this year, Alex Trebek. We got a bunch of people. We even got some rap people.
Oh.
Yeah, hey,
Why not? You might be doing a little rapping yourself.
Well, I did that a long time ago. I started, myself and Barry White and Isaac Hayes, we started that rap thing, only we called it monologues. That was back in about 19,
Yeah.
back in the 60s and 70s. Of course, what's happening now, the now generation rap stuff, that's a little different.
You've come really full circle, I guess, your new album, At Last. There must be special significance and meaning to that title, At Last.
Yes, it is. For a while, and when I first started recording at Capitol back in the 60s, when you go in the studio, you would go in with the musicians, and everybody, the singers and everybody, and you would, get that feedback from each other. And then in the 70s, they turned it around, I guess, when the disco music started to really become a big thing. They stopped doing that. They just started going in and saying, okay, we'll have the piano player lay down his track today, the drummer lay down his track tomorrow, the bass player lay down his, next week. And if we got a singer, they'll bring them in last and let them put on some headphones and they can sing to the track. Well, that way, you don't get any kind of real, response. You don't get what kind of response you get from a microphone.
That's right.
So when I started discussing the album project with the Blue Note people, Bruce Lundvall and Mike Cascuna, I said, hey, let's do it the way they used to do it. Let's take the musicians in at the same time. Let's all go in together.
And George Benson's on this album?
Yeah, George Benson, Ray Charles, Stanley Turrentine, Fat Ed Newman, Richard.
We have more time, we can name them all.
Yeah,
the telethon,
a bunch.
3 o'clock Pacific,
starts 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 Eastern. Hey. And
don't get tired on us yet, Lou Rawls. You got a busy day ahead of you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on Showbiz Today. You bet.
Hey, buddy, thank you.
We'll be back in just a minute. And finally, Kenny Rogers and Kenny Rogers Jr. are making their first dramatic appearance together in a Christmas special that airs next week. It's the story of an estrangement between father and son, one that closely parallels their own problems years ago.
This is the break you've been working your whole life for. Could you have ever imagined when you were a kid a portrait of the President of the United States?
In Christmas in America, a love story, Kenny Rogers, himself an avid photographer, plays a globe-trotting cameraman who looks back at his life through 4 different stages. One stage finds him traveling around the world on numerous assignments, a stage that closely resembles Rogers' own life when he was first getting started in the music business. It was a period that ended up in a divorce from his wife and estrangement from his son.
Oh, I can't tell you why I love her, I don't even know myself.
When you're a creative person, there's just a fine line between being driven and being selfish.
And I think that as a young adult, I crossed over that line. That my job brought me so much pleasure that I rationalized by saying I was doing this for my family so they could have the trappings of success, when in fact it just brought me so much pleasure that I was so selfish about it that I couldn't give it up.
Kenny Rogers Jr. plays his son in the NBC movie.
Dad, couldn't you have left the damn camera at home for once, please?
I always knew we'd come back together again. One of the main problems was the fact that when I was about 12 or 13 years old, which is when my parents divorced, I came to the understanding within myself that my parents, as well as being parents, were people unto themselves. And given that, they have the right to remain friends or not to be friends. As it turns out, they weren't.
I would think it was also probably particularly difficult because coincidentally at the time, almost within the year after I left is when my biggest success started. So here's a kid who now doesn't see his father, but he sees him on television, and he sees his success and so forth. So I would think that would have made it even that much more difficult to explain to his friends.
But his friends won't need an explanation when they see father and son together on stage, possibly in the near future.
I've told him that if he gets his record career as a new album with Cypress Records, and he's gotten tremendous enthusiasm, the company's very excited about him, that if he gets it off the ground and he's interested in it, I'll bring him out and let him sing some with my band on the road. I think the people that come to my show would enjoy his music.
There's a lot of ifs in there, pal.
But no more ifs concerning this relationship as father and son.
Sorry.
And that's it for this edition of Showbiz Today. Bill Tush has Showbiz This Week tomorrow and Sunday on CNN. In Hollywood, I'm Bella Shaw.
And next week, you can also look forward to stories on Kathleen Turner, Wayne Newton, and Peter, Paul, and Mary. That's it for this edition of Showbiz Today in New York. I'm Lauren Sidney, and from all of us here, have a terrific weekend.